Namaste, welcome. This is Lighthouse Tarot and Astrology. We are looking at Jupiter setting in the night sky. Today is Wednesday, December 8th, and it is just after 9 o'clock. It is 9:11 on the nose. And Jupiter is setting. The moon has also just set, along with this star Fomalhaut. I've got the moon pulled up, and I'm going to show you this real quick here as I remove the ground. You can see the moon was right there beneath the horizon. Let me pull that up real quick. And if we make this proper here, we're going to zero the horizon and turn this off, and the moon is right on the horizon. This star, Fomalhaut, right? You can see this star in the night sky, and right now, because of where Jupiter is, just after sunset, Jupiter will be more vertical. It'll be a little bit higher in the sky, and if you look just over to the left, you'll be able to see Fomalhaut, and it's really quite bright. It's not really doing it justice here on the program, and this is one of the primary fixed stars, right? Aquarius is fixed air, and these are the old cardinal points. So we look to these fixed points on the zodiac, and these are major reference points. The other one in Taurus, you can absolutely see Aldebaran, Regulus. You can see, and oh my gosh, Scorpio is escaping me, but we'll go look at Scorpio in just a second. In any event, right now, as I'm making this video, we've got the moon, Jupiter, and Fomalhaut, and these are all setting. These are all going down below the horizon over the next hour or so. But I wanted to make this video because in the last video I referenced a couple things, and I wanted to just kind of elaborate a little bit. So the first thing, since we're here, and I can take you to that pretty easily, was over here, Uranus. And let's see, hey, it worked right away. In the last video I had trouble clicking on Uranus, and right there, first time was a charm. So again, you can see the constellation Aries, right? And this planet Uranus is the conscious mind, right? So this is what I wanted to give a little bit more depth to the significance, the meaning, and this will give me a chance to offer a little bit more on my particular take on how I see all of this, because everybody's got a different angle, and that's just as it should be. I'm just here to share what I've learned and offer perspective. So I hope that you can hear that and enjoy it for what that is. We can share together. So that said, I love your feedback. I love your comments. So please communicate with me. I'm grateful for it. It helps me to learn. It's everything I look at. I look at as a lesson. I look at as some way to grow, to understand more. I can't get enough. So, and that's what really ultimately brought me to astrology, because it's in so many ways the great equalizer. Every tradition, every method, right? They all reference the stars in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's moon worship, sun worship, star worship of some kind, understanding the history of certain traditions, right? You can't help but come into the stars. Most people agree that all music all rock music, let's say, it leads back to the blues, and all roads lead back to the stars. So Uranus is the conscious mind. Uranus represents the mind of the alert conscious mind, and a lot of people say it's the revolutionary mind, which is interesting in that the mind itself evolves, right? Our awareness, our understanding evolves. I mean, we think just 100 years ago, most people couldn't read. And now so many people can read, and more people are able to read in their own language, read in a common language, and now we have the internet that we can share all of this virtually instantaneously across the globe. So this is a massive. These are massive leaps forward in the mind of humanity, of beings on the earth, right? And as more and more people do this, right, it has an influence and a ripple effect throughout the whole planet, right, and of course the whole solar system. So when we talk about these planets, right, they have in some ways physical representation in that they offer us perspective on what's actually happening. Most often, though, we can best perceive them as psychological states, right? That the planet itself represents a kind of consciousness. In this case, the consciousness is of the conscious mind. It is a psycho-emotional state, or you could say a psychosomatic emotional state. And they all have these characteristics, right? Every planet has, you could say, a full range of personality, even though it's meant to signify a particular thing, right? Uranus behaves in many different ways depending on where it is. So the house of Aries is cardinal fire, right? So the mind, the conscious mind, is going through, we could say, a kind of purification. It's going through the heat, the fire, right? And it is the cardinal sign, right? It's the most. It's like blue flame, right? The cardinal signs, we could think of them like, we say, like the cardinal gases or the noble gases in chemistry, right? It's the most refined state of the element, right? So cardinal fire, the most refined state of fire, and this is what the conscious mind is passing through, and this is an 8-year cycle, right? So it influences half a generation of people born under this sign. Someone will have to teach me how to pause the video. I just took a sip of water, so I apologize if that was loud. But, when you talk like this, it makes your throat dry. All right, so we're going to go and look at this square to Saturn. Right? So now I've given you a sense of what Uranus is about. We're going to look at Saturn in Capricorn. And Saturn is at home in Capricorn. Saturn is the third eye. Saturn is the trained intuition. Saturn is the wisdom of the ages. And it's come home to its sign of Capricorn, and it will stay there, and it will continue into it also its own sign of Aquarius, right? So Saturn is ready to lay down the law, and this isn't just the law. A lot of people say Capricorn and Saturn have to do with the government, have to do with authority, right? We understand this. I understand this as the authority of nature, the authority of again of a timeless wisdom, and an authority that has to do with a much bigger sense of what we could call right and wrong than what we think of in our own personal lives, or again on the governmental level. And these systems, these structures are under the domain of Saturn and Capricorn, and we use them in such a way. But we could say like the law of human beings is very different than the law of nature. We have a way of turning and twisting things that doesn't always move in harmony with, we could say, a natural cycle or certain natural forces. So I hope that's not too condescending or insulting, but we try to call it like we see it, and we want to be honest about how justice is meted and how things actually shake down. You know, so we can do our best, and I always come back to this understanding that each one of us every day has a chance to be our kindest, our gentlest, and most noble self. And I trip up all the time, but I have that in my sights, right? That there is a kinder and gentler way to be in the world. And I think it matters how each one of us function and behave. And most often, when we look at the bigger picture, we see a lot of shady dealings and nonsense going on that it's better to generally stay away from, because it often only gets us riled up and creates more challenges again on the personal level. So, if that's your arena and you're a politician and that's where you operate, then that's your day to day. And again, just being the kindest, gentlest, most compassionate version of yourself, most noblest version of yourself, most noble version of yourself. You'd think I didn't study English in college. All right, so Saturn in Capricorn in square to Uranus, right? This is tension between a conscious revolutionary spirit that's going through a purification and the legal structures, the governmental structures, the authority structures, right? The challenges that these bring, right? The friction that is coming up with this Saturn square Uranus. And it's interesting because this whole year it's been a back and forth. Saturn came into square Uranus at the beginning of the year. And this was amazing because I think it was almost exactly on the 20th of January, and that was the date of the inauguration. And then I don't have the date for the second square off the top of my head. But that was sometime in July, August, when Saturn was squaring Uranus. And now Saturn is going to square Uranus for the third time on the 24th of December, on Christmas Eve. And I think it's Christmas Eve in some parts of the world on the 23rd. But I think once it gets to Universal Greenwich time, I think it's going to be Christmas Eve technically. So we look at that as just a significant marker of this retrograde, heliograde motion going back and forth, and Saturn doing that 1, 2, 3 crossover and making that square. And Saturn now is eventually going to be making several aspects on its way to eventually being conjunct with Uranus. And that doesn't happen until 2030, I think 2031. So we've still got a way to go before we see that, but I'm sure that will be quite significant as well as these forces of structure, of governmental powers, of authority, whether that's again personal authority, governmental authority, authority from wherever it might be. Sorry, I'm wondering why this is flashing over there. All right, hopefully that will stop. I hope that wasn't bothering anybody. These authority structures, whether they're personal or, again, more sort of societal, universal, we're coming into conflict with what we can do and what has to be done, what we want to do and what's required of us. And the mind, as it's going through this purification process in Aries, right? This is going to be the challenge, because so many things need to fall away. So many things need to drop off. We need to let go of so much so that we can move forward. All right, I'm going to leave this one there. I think this video is long enough, and you've heard enough of my ramblings as I've gotten around to some of these points. But I hope it's all food. Like I said, I try to share my perspective on all these, and I'm hoping that some of you will share back. So thank you all so much for watching, and go be the love, go be the most noble version of yourself.